welcome. So, have you ever heard people talking about the stock market and just felt totally lost? It can really sound like a completely different language, right? Well, today we are going to fix that. We're going to break down what the stock market actually is using simple ideas you already understand. No confusing jargon, I promise. Let's get into it.
To get this, I want you to start by picturing a business you really know and love. Maybe it's that awesome little coffee shop on the corner, the one with the best lattes that's always buzzing with people.
So, this place is a huge hit, and the owner, they've got a big dream. They see those long lines, they see all the happy customers, and they just know they've got something special. They want to expand, open new shops in other parts of town, maybe even in different cities. But there's a problem. To build those new shops, hire more staff, and buy all those shiny new espresso machines, well, they need money. A lot of it. And taking out a giant loan from a bank can be super risky. So what do? Where does that money come from? This right here is the fundamental question we're going to answer. All right, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with our coffee shop's big dream. Then we'll see how that idea scales up into what we call the stock market. We'll look at why companies use it, how you, yes, you can participate. And then we'll tackle that big one. Is it just gambling? And finally, we'll talk about your learning journey.
So, how does our favorite coffee shop owner make that big dream happen? Well, the solution is actually way simpler than you might think.
Okay, so instead of going to a bank, the owner decides to invite the community, the very people who love the coffee, to become partners. How? They do it by dividing the entire company up into thousands of tiny equal pieces. Then, loyal customers and supporters can buy these little pieces. And just like that, the coffee shop gets the cash it needs to grow.
And those tiny pieces of the business? That's it. That is all a share of stock really is. It's basically a certificate that says you own a tiny little fraction of a real company. You're not just a customer anymore. You're a part owner. Now let's take that simple idea from our little coffee shop and imagine what happens if we scale it up. I mean, way up, to the biggest companies on the planet.
You see, the stock market isn't some mythical, scary machine. Honestly, just think of it like a giant farmer's market. But instead of people selling apples and carrots, you have huge companies selling those little pieces of ownership, their shares, to absolutely anyone who wants to buy them. So you might be wondering, okay, I get it for a small coffee shop, but why do these massive, super successful companies need to do this? The truth is, the reasons are exactly the same, just on a much, much bigger scale. I mean, all companies need money, or what we call capital, just to run their day-to-day business. But they also need big chunks of cash for the exciting stuff, like funding research for new products, building new factories, or expanding into different countries. Selling shares lets them raise that money directly from people like us, instead of taking on massive debt. It's literally an engine for growth and innovation. So what's in it for the people who buy these shares? Well, here's the cool part. If the company you invested in does well, if it grows, if it becomes more profitable, then that tiny piece of ownership you hold can become more valuable over time. You get to share in the success of the business. This all sounds pretty cool, right? But who exactly gets to buy these shares? Is this some kind of exclusive club for billionaires in top hats? No way. Absolutely not. The whole system is actually designed for everybody to participate. As one source puts it perfectly, companies are actively inviting, quote, normal people like you and me to put some money into their company. It's supposed to be a partnership between the business and the public. And this is so important to understand. The stock market is not just a playground for the rich. The idea that you need thousands of dollars to get started is a total myth. These days, you can often buy just a tiny fraction of a single share, making you a part owner in a huge company with a very small amount of money. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This is probably the biggest fear most beginners have. Is investing in the stock market just a glorified trip to the casino? Is it basically just gambling? Let's be really clear about the difference here. Gambling is placing a bet on a completely random outcome, right? The wheel spins, the dice roll, and you either win or lose. You don't own a piece of the casino. Buying a stock is fundamentally different. You are purchasing a real piece of a real business, a business that makes things, that sells services, that has employees and customers. So when you own a stock, you're not just betting on a number. You become a part owner of a company. You have a claim to its assets and you get to share in its profits. You're putting your money behind businesses that are building things and driving the economy. It's ownership, not a bet. So let's wrap this all up. We started with a simple coffee shop and we ended up with the whole global economy. So what's the one big thing you should take away from all this? Here are the key takeaways. First, the stock market is just a big marketplace for buying and selling tiny pieces of companies. That's it. Second, it's there to help those companies get the money they need to grow and innovate. And third, and this is the most important one for you, it allows anyone, not just the super rich, to become a part owner in those businesses. You know, if this simple breakdown was helpful, and if you want to keep learning step by step without all the confusing noise, you might want to consider subscribing to NeuralTarot. We're going to keep this learning series going to build your knowledge right from the ground up. So, what's next? Well, next time we're going to dive a little deeper into that piece of ownership. We'll figure out what a share really is and what being a part owner of a company actually means. I really hope you'll join me for the next step in our journey. Thanks for watching.